Hello and welcome to another episode of Through the Web. Today we're going to be talking about mostly social media stuff, some stuff to do with TikTok, and also a stolen Volkswagen that was denied access by law enforcement. So it's an interesting show. Let's get into it.
Dagogo.
Yes.
When was the last time that you got really, really drunk?
That's a good question. Would have been many years ago.
Not knowing where you were? Blackout?
No, not like that,
Okay.
but just, yeah.
So you're really drunk isn't like really, really, really drunk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you know that feeling when somebody gets drunk, they like their heads start spinning?
Uh-huh. Yes. I think I know where this is going.
Imagine having that feeling, but without any drink.
Doesn't sound good.
That's what happened to me last week.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning.
Essentially, on I think it was last Monday night or something. I was very tired, and just tired in general. Like I didn't have a good night's sleep the night before. Just long day, usual Monday, and then towards the evening, I was feeling sleepy. I was like, and there were times where I felt a little like dizzy-ish, like maybe 1 to 5% dizzy now and then, but I kind of accounted it for that I was sleepy. I didn't have enough sleep last night. So I was just kind of playing it off that, I just need to get to bed early. But as kind of the evening progressed, I was kind of having those little quick moments where I would just feel a little bit kind of off balance and be like, oh, you know what, I just really need to sleep. And as I was getting ready for bed, and as soon as I kind of lied down, the world started spinning intensely for like at least 15 to 20 minutes. Like everything was moving and nothing helped. Like lying down didn't help. And every time I would shift my position, it would just get progressively worse for a few minutes. And then turns out it's like an inner ear infection. And what it does is essentially it impacts blood flow signals to your brain. So if it impacts one side of your ear, it's the brain's thinking, it's not getting signals from one side, so it impacts your balance, and it feels like you're constantly falling down. So the brain can't decide that if you're staying up or not because of that one thing on one side of your ear. And turns out that it's a very common thing. Like people, it's from a cold virus as well that attacks the inner ear or middle ear. Yeah, it's something I didn't know about until it happened to me, and it just turns out it's like this weird beast of a thing that can happen to anyone essentially. And the funniest thing is I didn't have any cold symptoms at that time. The day later, I was like down with cold and flu.
So did they give you any antibiotics or anything, or you just...
No, it's just cold, just a very simple cold.
Right.
It'll go away on its own, just take rest, and it did essentially. I'm back to normal. But yeah, I'm made out of glass is what I'm trying to say in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, everyone in the comments count the number of times Tawsif has introduced the podcast
with an illness, with an ailment, with some sort of injury, which by the way, I also found out that I'm carrying a ligament tear on my ankle for the last few months. Actually, I had no idea about.
Yeah. On that note, have you heard of PRP?
No, what's that?
It's platelet, like rich platelet replacement or something like that. But essentially they extract a vial of your blood and they spin it in a centrifuge to distill the not white blood cells, but the platelets. Mm-hmm. And essentially when the platelets leave the body, they get activated and release all of these, I guess, I'm not sure what they're called, but like, healing properties, repair, like nerve healing agents, all this kind of stuff. And they use it in sports injuries. They inject it back into your body around the affected area. Right. So maybe it's worth looking into.
Yeah, well, look, I'm happy to try anything at this stage because, like you said, every month I have a story like this. And, well, people can count over the last year because this week will be our 1-year anniversary of the podcast. So I don't know which button to press here, but we'll just...
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Not that wasn't meant to be the button that we're supposed to press.
Okay, but so 1 year, that's very good. And we're still waiting for the new office to be readied. So
so we will have to kind of bear with us essentially until we move there. Yeah. But how was your week otherwise, Dagogo?
Yeah, so I think we're tag teaming because
nice one.
I'm sick. So I've had a really sore throat for a while now. It's been just over a week, but it started on like particularly on the right hand side towards the back, and then worked its way until it enveloped the whole throat, and it just got painful to eat and swallow, talk. So that was very unpleasant.
Oh, we need you to talk, man. We need you to talk. That's something that's non-negotiable. Yeah, we gotta get sorted out.
No, but the throat pain is mostly gone now. But the annoying thing is it's developed into a cough, and which tends to kick up when I'm lying down and trying to sleep. So I'm coughing all night, and I can't sleep. So it's just it's been a lovely time.
But your voice is still okay, so that's good.
Mostly, yeah.
Well, as it was evident with the comment section in the post that you made about the podcast. So first of all, hello subscribers. The OGs of the Cold Fusion channel has been coming in droves, I guess, after your post. And this is how we start our show usually, with a bit of personal story about our problems in life. Nothing to do with tech?
No, it's not.
It's not our usuals.
No. Yeah, just a little fun segment where we say what we've done this week and what we've watched, any interesting news I've come across. And
that's right.
Yeah, so has there been any interesting things that you've come across?
I can't think of anything really that I've watched that I can talk about. So I'll probably pass it off to you with this one.
Okay. Well, I've come across this channel called Mentour Pilot. And he's a aviation. Well, I think he began as an aviation firefighter, but then became like a full-on pilot and is practicing pilot.
So what's an aviation firefighter?
As in, like when a plane comes down the tarmac and there's a fire.
Oh wow! Okay, I didn't know that was a separate thing altogether. Wow.
Well, the pilots don't do that. Yeah, it's another set of. Well, actually, that's what he mentioned. So yeah, I'm not quite sure, but anyway. So so he just does aircraft investigation videos essentially, but obviously because he's a pilot, he goes into so much detail about how the systems on board work, what kinds of checks and balances the pilot should take, how the training procedures go, and just everything, like as much detail as you want. So I was watching a few of those, and just some of the disasters that happened and the chain of reaction of things that went wrong. And some of them are just like, if just this one thing didn't happen, then like 500 people will be alive, Wow. So I think I guess the stupidest one I saw, not stupid as in like obviously it's tragic, but just pilot error, I guess, was a Kenyan Airlines flight. So essentially they were going up to cruising altitude, and the pilot, who in his history was very arrogant and failed the tests and got through again by just like doing it again. But everyone said like he had a terrible attitude, but he still was flying essentially. But he thought the autopilot was on, but it wasn't. So the plane was like, no one was looking at the controls, and the plane was like slowly banking, and he didn't know. And then essentially it gave off a warning saying high bank angle. But he, instead of like tilting the plane the other way, he put it in the same way that it was going, and then like essentially put the rudder to like full right, which is the direction it was going. So basically pile drove the plane downwards. So they didn't have enough time to essentially figure out what was going on because they were confused. They thought like what was going on. But he still just like had full rudder, and plane just like crashed into the ground. God. So essentially, there was lapses in training for these individuals, and the incident like that should have never happened. But it's always just interesting to see like the analysis of what the airline industry is like. There's so many checks and safety procedures that it's actually quite safe, but it's just these things that, one incident leads to another, and then, there's a hole in some kind of training, and it just happens, that particular incident just happens to slip through that hole and cause an accident. So, I thought that was quite interesting.
I think the core idea for the airline industry is probably just eliminating human errors as much as possible, essentially. But do you think we'll get to a point where there won't be pilots driving us?
I think that's a very, very long way away because even, plane systems, they need data to be fed in, right? Yeah. And even autopilots today, when some data isn't matching. So for example, a piece of equipment that causes a lot of airline disasters is called pico tubes. So essentially what it is, it's a small tube. There's like 3 of them on the aircraft, or depending on the aircraft. And essentially it just gives velocity data of the wind, so you can tell like what speed the plane's going at, etc. But sometimes they can get iced up and clogged, so the readings become like faulty and irrelevant. So the autopilot in that case switches off because it doesn't know what it's doing essentially. And how could it? So I think there'll just be situations like that with different sensors or whatever malfunctions or what have you, that you'll just need a backup person because it's just such a high risk environment. I think it's required.
But do you think it will be possible at some point?
I think it'll be irresponsible if
Really?
I think so. I think that there'll just have to be a backup pilot just in case, you know. I think the pilot's involvement in the far future will go down, but I think it'll just be worth having someone there who knows the systems, you know, because it's like when you have any automated system, there's always a person who manages it. If it's in an industry with high risk and physical objects.
Right. Okay. Well, that was very interesting. No, it was. And it sounded very, very sarcastic.
Yeah, that was interesting.
No, my dad used to was in the Air Force, and a lot of his latter work related to air traffic control. So I used to hear stories like this every now and then about, like ways how from the ATC, which is the ATC tower, the control tower, how busy it could get at times as well. And essentially that always used to make me kind of a bit anxious as to that. What if you just doze off for a bit, or like any little, and a lot of the stories that we also hear is the signals coming out of the ATC or the comments coming out of the ATC was not done well, or just a bit of human error there as well. So I guess you'll probably never eliminate human errors if it's depending on humans all the time. But yeah, I think there will be elements to it that will get replaced, I guess, as times go on. Yeah, no, I think that's true. But yeah, just speaking on the control tower incident reminds me of, control tower part of things. It reminds me of an incident that happened, I think, in the 70s, where there was two planes essentially taxiing, but the control tower gave a signal to say, there's a plane on the runway or something. But just at that moment, there was like a static and they didn't hear. And it was just that one little bit and they smashed into each other. Something happened very recently as well. I don't know if you saw. I don't know which airport it was. It was in the US, I'm pretty sure. Probably the JFK. But they're very close for in terms of a similar incident. Where they had to, get one plane to stop taking off at the last second because there was another one. But stuff like that, like split second decisions, man. And the thing is, when you watch all these videos, just because you're seeing all these incidents, you're like, oh, I'm scared of flying. But it's kind of like nothing. It turns out that flying is safer than getting in a car. It's true, but it's just because of the bias of seeing all these incidents, you're like, man, I'm not getting in one of those things again. Well, that actually is the perfect segue to the first story, because it's got nothing to do with flying, but it has something to do with cars. Okay. Because do you think cars will continue to be safe, or will they become safe now that TikTok will be available on cars? What? So TikTok is coming to your cars, whether you like it or not, and they've started with the Mercedes-Benz models. They announced a new partnership with them, which will see TikTok content directly integrated into the super screen of the new E-Class car. Essentially, the purpose of it, well, according to TikTok, is that while you're passing time stationary in your vehicle to simply enjoy a moment to yourself while your car is at rest, this is, before heading to your destination, TikTok will be a new favorite activity when it's parked, delivering to you a stream of videos just tailored for you. Passengers can also get into the fun too. The two screens on the vehicle will run independently, so both the driver and the passengers can log into their own accounts and use TikTok and, I guess, collaborate and do stuff while they're just waiting to pick up Timmy from school. Yeah. Look, I don't really care, to be honest. Like, people can do what they want in their cars. I honestly think it is a stupid idea, but hey, if people want to do that, sure. I guess the reason why I bring this up is less for the tech itself, but more from the angle that TikTok's trying to expand themselves on. It just feels like they want to be everywhere, and if they're everywhere, it'll be hard to take down. with the whole idea of banning TikTok from government.
I guess, but putting it in a car doesn't mean the government's not.
No,
gonna
no,
be
but
like,
that's like the first.
Right.
I guess that's probably their first idea of expansion in a market that really has no business of being. It could be, I don't know, in fridges next. You remember the
Samsung fridges,
Yeah,
yeah.
with Twitter that you could tweet from the fridge. Do you remember that time? So I think some fridges had screens there,
Right.
and you could tweet straight from the thing, and then people would some people would would use it for like a grocery list by mistake, and so people would be just tweeting like, "Oh, need milk" or
Right,
something like
right,
that, and
right,
it's just
right.
like, "Yes, Twitter from the Samsung fridge."
Yeah.
But anyway, I
Yeah.
digress. The point being is that this is probably first of many different verticals that TikTok's probably exploring in terms of trying to have a strong ground or foundation outside of the basic app.
Yeah, I get that point of view, but I think no matter what they do, it's like there's not going to be an application or an environment that they impose themselves in that will be so, I guess, essential to society that the government isn't going to ban them anyway, if it comes to that. I think the government's thinking of a national security risk, and that's enough. It's backed by the Chinese government, who has their fingers in every aspect of that company. So I don't think it's going to be enough to put it in a car or a fridge and say.
How about this? What about if entire Death Row Records and Snoop Dogg albums and Tupac albums were exclusively available on TikTok? Would that be enough?
Would that be enough to stop the government from banning them? No.
But that's another part of the story. I don't know if you've been seeing, but essentially, Snoop Dogg released the entire catalog of Death Row Records, which he acquired, I think, last year. And essentially, they'll be exclusively going through TikTok's distribution and marketing service called SoundOn. And what the SoundOn platform, which TikTok owns, here's the interesting part. It pays 100% royalties to music creators for the first year, and then 90% after that, with a range of promotional tools and support as well. So the artists will be able to obtain 100% for an unlimited time as they're kind of starting to expand the sound side of music side of things as well. And Snoop Dogg was one of the big names that they kind of cooped up.
Okay, so explain to me a little bit more of how this works. What's it called again? SoundOn.
Yeah.
Okay. So SoundOn, so they're a distribution platform. So essentially you put your music to them and then they put it on able to be found on TikTok, and that's it?
No, so they will now allow, TikTok owns it, but then they can then decide, depending on the artists and stuff, if they're going to put it on Spotify, Apple,
okay, so
else.
TikTok holds the
exclusive rights to that catalog of music.
Interesting.
So if they ever decide that, you know what, we don't want to post it on Spotify, they can choose to do it. Obviously, there's going to be some nuances with the artists and stuff like that. But not even TikTok, like they own SoundOn,
right?
Which is going to have that. But then because TikTok owns SoundOn, what that also allows is for this entire catalog to be used on TikTok, which also tells me how much people use music in the cars. And there could be some tie in there as well,
but
like exclusively.
Can you stream from TikTok?
No, not the
just audio
app, or not in a usual like Spotify way.
Right.
But I am guessing there could be some sort of angle in the future where they're just again having their fingers in the music industry.
Yeah. And I think that, TikTok and the music industry is a great synergy. I think that they have a huge sway there. Like people can blow up overnight, get millions of plays on just from being discovered on TikTok, but obviously...
Yeah, and it's not just that either. I don't know if you've been... these things happen so frequently as well. Like there was this auto shop, I don't know if you saw this week. Basically, it's they made like this really stupid TikTok video, like that was very native. Only people who use TikTok would get it, kind of those memes kind of videos. And it blew up. It got like, I don't know, 10, 15 million views. And essentially people were just so happy to start checking out the small auto shop in a random nowhere in the US, and their Google reviews were just blowing up. People saying, "Yeah, go use it, go use it."
Right.
So much so that Google actually had to, come in and check for like negative, like not negative, but fake reviews.
Right.
And now they've got like an insane amount of following. There's people like they've become like a cult kind of meme thing.
The thing is, it's good for this shop, obviously. There's plenty of revenue, etc. And obviously I think it will have a lasting impact. But how long is that core audience really there? Like in 5 years, are people still...
No, I mean, this one was a bit different because this is not really a creator scenario.
Yeah,
it's more of a small business.
Yeah, which will be great for them. But I'm thinking about like other incidents of people who blow up and want to capitalize on that, but how long does it kind of really last? Is
for like musicians, for example.
Yeah, it's more of a general question. Because I've heard that some TikTok musicians, they go and do a live concert and then people only know that 30 seconds of the song and then afterwards it's silence because no one's singing.
I think it just, again, really depends on how the artists also kind of strategize their moves as well. There was this artist, again, you don't use much of TikTok, but essentially there's a main feed where video just kind of get fed to you. And I would get this one guy who would remix this really popular Kendrick Lamar song that I like, and it was essentially building up on the beat that he had. And I really liked listening to that stuff. And he's like, I'm gonna release this version that's just mine. It was built on top of that Kendrick Lamar song, and he teased the hell out of it. Like he would be, making every other TikTok about that, and it got annoying to a point where like, come on, man, just release it already. But he was like milking every second out of it, right? To the point where I think people just got tired of it. It's like, okay, we know you got a viral moment, but now you're just, the entire thing is your personality now. Right. So I think also how you kind of, and now when he actually did release it, I don't think a lot of people kind of forgot about it. It wasn't just the same kind of hype value and so forth. So I think it also depends how the artist kind of works with the fame that they get, and you're right, because some of them would be very, very minimal, but it also depends on the artists and the bands or any creator who use that virality to extend that level.
But I guess, maybe it's harder to do that on such a short platform with so much competition versus something else, because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but on TikTok it seems like things are big but they burn out faster. Because it's just so like everything's like 30 seconds a minute and there's so much of it. So kind of like everyone forgets about what just happened. Yeah,
and I think TikTok's also trying to go into the longer video side of things as well. They're incentivizing a whole new fund for videos longer than a minute now. So again, that also changes some level of tactics. Whilst YouTube just announced that they're allowing a duet of shorts. So everyone's kind of copying everyone again. But you're right. I think with TikTok, they
should just merge and become TikTube.
You talk. And essentially, that's where things are heading. Like everything just everyone's just trying to copy everyone. But to your original point of things kind of burning out fast. Yeah, but I think it still brings a lot of traction to the original.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's not a bad thing to have, having a viral moment. But I just think the virality on different platforms are different.
I actually had a question that I also want to ask you because you're a musician. But when you make a song and it's out there, you as a creator of that piece, you have it imagined in certain ways in your head, right? That it's a nice kind of mellow song and stuff. Imagine you're kind of on TikTok one day and somebody speeds it up times 10, you use it to dance on it or use it to explain something that you're not particularly fond of, or basically it gets hijacked by the general society or culture driven memes that are so prevalent on these platforms, right? How would you feel about that as a creator? Would you feel that, it's great that it has some purpose outside of what it was intended to be? Or would you just be so pissed that you just kind of be like, I want to
No,
take it down.
I wouldn't be pissed. Like, I would be happy that people like it for some reason. But I guess apart from the song I most recently made, but with most of my stuff, it's not funny or that kind of thing. So it was used to like show fail compilations of people falling over and stuff. I'd be like, oh, that's interesting, but I wouldn't be mad, So.
Right. But if it's being used other than its intended purpose, would that kind of bother you at all?
As in if people modify the song, or like as you said, speed it up or something.
Yeah, speed it up, cut it out, chop it out, and it becomes, I don't know, like for example, during the rise of Andrew Tate, right? He had this song that was attached to him, like Brayden, it's like this. I don't know, was it a Romanian song or? Yeah, it's this very specific song in a European language. Okay. But obviously the person who made that song never intended for it to be attached to Andrew Tate specifically, or, it could be a different scenario as well.
Okay, but I guess like if it's used for a whole bunch of different reasons, I don't mind. But if it's something like that, where it's a particular person where that song gets known for, and that person is negative, or whatever they're talking about is negative, then I would mind.
Or something that you don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah, then I would mind.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and then TikTok does a lot of that, and I think that's something I think about quite often, because a lot of the songs that do get popular, often just happen by accident. Obviously, there's a whole segment of it that Brayden's just vibing to the Andrew Tate song. Right. But a lot of the times it just feels like most of this is just by accident. It just without any reason just blows up, or so I don't know. Just thought something.
Yeah. Okay.
Last story on the TikTok side of things. So just this week, they announced that they'll be setting a 60-minute daily screen time for users under the age of 18. It was already an opt-in version, but now it'll become an opt-out default. And essentially what it'll do is they'll have to link to a parent who'll be able to control, or a guardian who'll be able to control their time on the app. And after 60 minutes, I think a passcode would pop up, which only the guardian would be able to control. It's also interesting because their parents are probably spending way more time on the app itself, because new research has come out that says that US adult users will spend an average of nearly 56 minutes per day on TikTok, which is 6 minutes less time spent watching Netflix. So it's very much closing in on average Netflix watch time.
Adult age range?
It said between 24 to 50 something.
Okay.
But then it also says that TikTok users aged 18 to 24 are watching the equivalent of a full-length comedy movie on the app every day anyway. So I think the younger adults definitely watch more than that.
Right. Because I was going to say, the old adage, when the boomers start using it, then it's uncool.
Yes.
so it's like if it's like 45 to 60.
Yeah. On that note, for example, like the meme that the small business used, a lot of the bigger companies, corporates like HP or I don't know, some of those big names, if they start using those kind of stuff, the first comments are usually like, as soon as a corporate uses it, it's no longer funny.
Yeah,
we don't want to see you do that.
Yeah.
Only small business, which is so interesting, like how it works, like the
because I think it's just people don't view it as genuine if it comes from a big corporation, because there's so many minds and so many focus groups and everything that it usually has to go through to come out. So it's like, this is manufactured. I don't like it. But whereas a small business, you think that it's just created by a bunch of people having fun or something. That's what I assume is going on. But let's just go back to cars and tech for a second. I don't know if you heard about the Volkswagen incident
with the little child. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, so essentially somewhere in the United States, I'm not sure, maybe Florida, there was a pregnant lady that had her child in the car. She went into her house or something, and then essentially this other car pulled up and stole her Volkswagen, which was the car that the child was in. And the lady, in a panic, tried to contact the police, and
she got run over during the incident as well, which is crazy.
Tried to contact the police, and then the police tried to contact Volkswagen to track down the car using some GPS system they had in it. And Volkswagen came back to law enforcement and said, we cannot do this because it's not a premium feature. So
it's not a premium feature that was paid for.
Yeah, so they haven't paid for it yet. So I kind of feel like it's dystopian on two levels. One that on either side, very, very either side. One that a car company, like when there's this crisis where a child's life is in danger, isn't going to help because the customer hasn't paid for something, which obviously seems quite immoral. And then on the other hand, the conspiracy theories about how the police can track your car or whatever, it kind of proves. I guess it's not dystopian in this view because it kind of proves that can't happen if you haven't paid for the premium feature. Anyway.
They're not gonna let you.
They just can't do it. So I thought that was quite interesting. It kind of shows that like the hard limits of capitalist companies, like what can they do to bend their rules to not make a buck, and it's a child being stolen isn't enough.
Yeah, because there's also the whole incident with the Apple backdoor of the iPhone backdoor situation as well, where they wouldn't let was it FBI or CIA?
Yeah, I think it was
enough
FBI,
information on a person of interest, right? So in this case, it's kind of similar where I think they have certain policies, and I think they mentioned there was a third party payment situation where Volkswagen, has that third party. There's a protocol that didn't meet, which is why they can't give the information, something of that sort. Which again, to me, feels like there are ways through which you can do it. But the good news is the child's safe.
Oh yes,
Just for those who didn't know the full story and were still anxious about the end, where it ended. The child's safe, and I think they're still looking for the person. Yeah. At least last I checked on the story anyway, but it does. These companies have policies, and I think within those policies they need to start integrating these situations where they will be required to relax a little bit.
Yeah, I just feel like I don't know. This is just a wild thought, but I just feel like that kind of stuff is getting everything's so like litigious and by the book that there's no common sense anymore. Like obviously if there's a child in danger and law enforcement is like, hey, like we need this situation fixed up, like you'd be like, sure. Like,
do you think it was a PR thing where they would rather, because there's two PR angles for them, right? So if I'm the Volkswagen PR guy and say they could get that information for the law enforcement, there's two PR stories here. One is, okay, I give that information, and this is again, we're hypothesizing here in the sense that we're assuming that they have the information and they can give it to law enforcement people. They say that, yep, I give it to you. Then the PR story becomes, Volkswagen is a human company, they're caring for, the society, saves a child's life. Then the other side of this PR, negative PR, is that, that means all the theories about anybody can track you anywhere, that these companies have access to it all the time.
So it's like, police.
The whole privacy law.
And that's definitely true. It's like if Volkswagen did relent and say to the police officers, okay, sure, this is an emergency situation. Sure, let's grant you the information. Then it kind of goes to say like
the whole slippery slope.
Yeah, it's like what could happen next. It's like law enforcement accuses you of doing something, so they'll track your car, etc. And because Volkswagen has done it before, that's quite normal. And I understand that, but
and now that they haven't given it, which is the other scenario, the PR in this case is still negative. But
the reason that they didn't give it was because they didn't pay.
True.
So that's the thing. They would have given it, but because the customer didn't pay. So I think that's but it also reminds me of a thing that happens with Nest cameras quite often. Mm-hmm. So what happens is if your subscription expires, the Nest company can't actually give you your footage. So if you had a break-in or something, then hard luck. You can't get your footage if you didn't pay your subscription.
So is it like automated mechanical situation where they just don't have that information?
Yeah, I think it's automatically for the Nest situation. I think it's automatically deleted. So it makes sense, but it's kind of like
On that note, I have a story to add. Just this week, actually, Ford came out with saying that they're going to introduce some mechanisms just like the Nest cameras, where their vehicles will start, will stop certain aspects of the car if you start failing to meet payments. So it'll start doing smaller things. So it'll start off with the like we can't pull down windows. Then it'll go into air conditions. It'll go into all the way. I don't know. Like maybe something will come out of the boot and just start with baseball bat and be like, "Yep, it's time to pay up, man." Like that's the final thing. But essentially, yeah, that's what Ford's planning to do as well. If you start to fail to meet payments.
Yeah, like obviously companies are looking after their bottom line with delinquent payments and stuff, but it just all feels very technocratic, you know? Yeah. It's like I guess you paid for this thing, but you can't get to use it. But I guess if you're not paying, you're not paying. But okay, this is a random story on car payments, but I saw this Twitter post. I think it's real, but essentially there was this man that gave his wife a present of a 1993 Ford Focus or something. And the repayments were $280 something per month for 56 months. So it ended up being like 20 something grand for this old bomb of a car. But it's just because they didn't have financial literacy to understand that, you know, yeah, you're going to be paying this. And that's just the principle. That's not interest or anything. So, I think just getting into payment schemes, you got to know what you're doing. And with Ford locking down parts of the car, you better be sure that you can make them. Like, imagine if they just turn off the brakes.
Yeah, in the middle of the thing. Oh, and one other thing was also that it could also drive away, apparently. So
it's like it will drive itself to a dealer or to the nearest scrapyard.
That's right. So imagine you're in the car and you're like, oh, this isn't, where I wanted to go. I really wanted to drive through coffee. And then now I'm in the scrapyard.
Yes, like why am I at a scrapyard? Yeah, man.
It's insane.
Yeah, but
the Mercedes comes out, if you don't pay up, we won't give you access to TikTok.
But what do you think about this whole, I guess, technocratic rule of law in terms of like using force in a technological way? Because stuff like the Nest cameras, for example, they could have allowed you to store your footage locally, but no, it's all got to be in the cloud, so they have control of that. If you don't pay, you can't get your footage. So what do you think of this kind of stuff?
I think the Nest one makes sense.
No, but you could, like, they could have allowed you to store it locally, but it's just.
Well, the thing is, there has to be some policies where if you are not paying, like, there has to be something that gets you to pay up, essentially. And I think there are people who, if they're still getting the use of the product, they'd still kind of be like, you know what, I'll pay later. And essentially, what happens is, the whole debt collector scene where a lot of people, they have to kind of pass, if they don't pay at all after, 3, 6, 12 months, they'll pass it off to a debt collector. It becomes like a whole, different ball game, right? So for companies, they think that, okay, if I just stop access to the product itself, it's easier, quicker, cheaper for us to be able to get that money back rather than that whole route of, so they're protecting themselves essentially.
No, that makes sense, but I guess like
should we do it or not is the question.
No, but there could be like a middle ground where, because these people are still paying, they've paid for the physical cameras, etc., right? But maybe you can't use the Nest app or something. But the critical function of being able to view your footage after a robbery, I think that might be able to let that slide. But that's, I don't know, maybe I'm just too kind. I don't know.
No, I feel maybe the first time around, like that you could potentially introduce like a level of that. Okay, the first week this gets stopped, the second week that gets stopped, and the third. Like if you don't pay it the first time, you won't get access to this. Maybe 80% of the time it'll work, 20% won't. I don't know. And then on the 20%, somebody just comes in and robs you.
What, Nest employees know when it's not working? So
hey, I mean, they have the information. So, but I'm just imagining Nest employees with with those striped robber dress. But yeah, I think I know it sounds rough and rude, but. I mean, how else would you get people to pay up for a product that they got into a deal with?
I guess, you signed the contract.
You signed the contract. But you're right. I think as individuals as well, you need to be able to know what you're getting into. And of course, for companies to not be that... Because sometimes they prey on these lack of understanding of a certain person, and they'll just be like, yeah, that's the person we need to go
like
for.
that car that
car situation, right? That's like anybody who's selling it to them knew what was going to happen eventually, right? So just explaining that in detail, that maybe it's not the best option, but yeah.
Well, let's see what you guys think in the comments.
For sure. Have you been paying attention to the Meta verification situation?
Zuckerberg wants people to cough up, right?
For both Instagram and Facebook to get a blue tick, essentially, or get verified, which means that anybody who wants to be get a verified badge, essentially it used to be just public figures in the past. Now anybody can apply for it, and if you're eligible, then there's like certain criteria. You get accepted, and then you pay like a monthly fee, just like Twitter Blue.
Yeah, everything is a subscription now.
Yeah, and then you get access to certain things. So, for example, you get like a customer service rep or like a chat option.
I actually saw Zuckerberg's post on this on Facebook, and then some people were like, he actually replied to a couple of comments, but then he kept getting roasted, so I think he stopped. But yeah, people were like, this customer service thing should have been there from the beginning. But it's hard. There's like billions of people. So,
and then I feel it should have been the case from the start to some degree in terms of getting your government ID to be able to use some of these social apps, because that's what you need to get verified, right?
But in 2005, no one was thinking that the internet was going to be a place where
everyone's going to be there.
Yeah,
in the way that
like it was just the Wild West. It was coming off the back of MySpace.
Because they're essentially taking a leaf of the Twitter Blue situation, where you don't need a government ID, I think, to get verified. But you just need to have a working bank account, if I'm not mistaken. Which again means that the whole idea of trolls and scams that was the main purpose of Twitter Blue is still there, because the whole parody thing kind of kicked off essentially as soon as it was introduced. And right now there's around I think last I saw was 300,000 people who are paying for that, which isn't a lot if you think about it. But then it's $8 a month, so that translates to 2.4 million a month.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, not the worst, but I guess in terms of Meta's situation, they're kind of trying to see that, okay, like Twitter Blue's somewhat successful in terms of bringing in that extra revenue, and then they just decided to go with it with some added features, like you mentioned, like the whole customer service thing, which actually Facebook was notoriously bad with. Like if you're a business, if you're a digital agency, a lot of the Facebook ads used to be built around, like a lot of business were built around Facebook ads at one time. Now that's going to decrease, especially after the whole Apple situation in 2021, where they introduced the whole opt-out of tracking. So yeah, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world because the people who will end up using this service are probably going to be individuals like creators and small businesses and things of this sort. And the news is I actually have done it.
How'd it go?
It was a very simple process. It took me like 30 seconds. All I had to do was just take a picture of a government ID, send it to them, meet the criteria, got verified.
Nice.
So the reason why to do that is because they've only introduced in Australia so far, and New Zealand.
Yeah, which is a weird place to start.
I think it's just the rollout process.
Just the smallest forgotten nations first.
Yeah, which makes sense again, because the US, there'd be like so many verified people, and people would just be willing to pay a lot more there. I don't know, but it was like $24.99 a month, which is a hefty amount, and I don't think everyone's gonna pay that. So again, I'm thinking they're only tuning this towards creators, or like serious creators anyway, people who are going to be small businesses and things of that sort. So yeah, I feel that amount is not cheap at all, more expensive than most subscriptions you get. But
can we just pause for a second here and go back 2 or 3 years? Would we have ever thought that Facebook would start charging for parts of their service? Would you have thought that?
No, because the whole old saying was that
you're
if
the product.
If it's free, you're the product. But now it's not like you're not the product. It's like it's not free and you're still the product because they're still going to get my data.
Worst of both worlds.
I'm still going to get the ads, for example, that's on Instagram and Facebook. It's not a YouTube Premium situation where you pay for YouTube Premium and you get no ads. You're still going to get fed ads. So it's just more money.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, Meta's stock has dropped, 60, 70%. And Mark Zuckerberg's bet on the metaverse is not working out. It's actually quite
we need to revisit
touch and
that.
go.
We need to revisit that at some point, like in detail.
Yeah, but essentially, like top executives are leaving, and even the people within the Meta, their Meta labs or whatever are saying this isn't working out. And I think Zuck or one of the upper management put out a bulletin saying you have to learn to love this product if you're going to make it good. So it's like they're forcing their own people to use it. The user base is so low, and they've poured billions of dollars into this thing, plus rising interest rates, and the economic environment is no longer the same. I think this is a way of just recouping some of those losses to appease some shareholders, because I think their last quarterly earnings wasn't too bad, but I think going on from here out, it's going to get harder. So, I think it's just a sign of the times, man. Like the Meta actually charging for their products is something that I never would have thought I'd see.
Yeah, and but the thing is, again, I'm thinking, who's really, really going to use it, right?
As in the metaverse or the charge, the verification,
paid verification subscription thing, right? And with Twitter Blue, $8 seemed like a more accessible. Most people would kind of do it. For Meta, I'm just thinking.
No, but if you're a business owner, I guess, like it's kind of like you want your business to stand out that little bit more, and you're making enough revenue that this isn't, as a business cost, it's not breaking the bank. Yeah, and if you're like a creator that wants to be recognized, I'd say. And also, if you have the revenue stream as well, then it's not a huge market. It's not like every average Joe is going to want to do this.
I think, again, as a creator, there are some good benefits. Like, for example, having somebody you can talk to within Facebook. There's so many cases of scams and would you pay for that service on YouTube, for example, to create? So if you got, I don't know, like a rep, you'd... I don't have other ways where it boost your reach.
We have, not boosting reach, but in terms of a rep, we have that already.
Okay.
As in YouTube. I actually don't know how that came about, but so I've had a YouTube rep before.
Right.
It wasn't that useful, but it was good to have someone,
somebody you can talk to.
Yeah, just have calls and stuff. But so that kind of exists. I'm not sure how YouTube does it or goes about it. But I wouldn't pay for it. No.
Really?
No.
Okay, so
but the boosting reach stuff, which is cheating, you shouldn't be able to do that. I'm sure anyone would pay for that, but
because that's one of the things that come with the thing
in the Meta.
Yeah,
really,
and they're open about it. It's like it'll increase your reach, not necessarily, and then that's why I wanted to test it out and see. Okay, like how much.
Interesting. So they got these dials that they could just,
No, I think with verified profiles, you could already see that they had an upper hand. So, for example, if you're reading through comments, they're like anybody who's verified, theirs would be on the top, right? You could speak to other verified people as well. So, for example, if somebody's an important person, or if they've got a verified tag and you need to reach out to them, and you're verified as well, your inbox message would be much higher up than other people. So those things, I think, is what they mean. So those already existed.
Yeah.
You just pay for it. You can pay for it now. That's all.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
On, I guess, still sticking on the whole social media side of things, have you seen the BlueSky from Jack Dorsey?
No.
Oh, okay.
I must have missed a lot this year.
Well, it's a new decentralized project that originated within Twitter, and it's basically now available on the Apple App Store as an invite-only social network. So essentially, it's Twitter on a decentralized platform, if that makes sense. And it was backed by Jack Dorsey, who's, by the way, is the co-founder and former CEO of Twitter. And he's been working on this app by its open source social protocol for months. And he called it the ATP, which is the Authenticated Transfer Protocol. And it just launched this week to invite only. They've been testing the beta since last October. And it looks a lot like Twitter. Like, and it makes sense because a lot of the people who use Twitter or who built Twitter and left Twitter have been working on this project. So very similar to that kind of stuff. BlueSky, I really don't understand the crux of the whole decentralized aspect of it. I have to kind of study a bit more. I'm not cool enough to get invited yet. Maybe my verified badge on Instagram I can just send a message to Jack Dorsey now. But things like that would be interesting to see, like what their game plan is. Because it seems like a lot of these small kind of niche social media things are just kind of popping up here and there, like the Artifact and BlueSky, and obviously Be Real was they're still around, by the way. It's interesting.
So they haven't collapsed yet. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe we might have to kind of go back. You still using Be Real, Brayden? Good. Still the same. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
I think I might have to kind of get into it at some point.
Right. But I need to know about this BlueSky thing, how it's actually decentralized. Because is it the data in terms of like if you upload a tweet or whatever, it's like, on a decentralized server, or is it the management is decentralized? So there's no censorship. I don't know. I need to look into it, but depending on that, it could be potentially interesting, but an increasingly crowded space. So, it's got to have some things that it can't just be Twitter, but decentralized. It has to be some kind of selling point that's unique that would get people to actually switch over.
I mean, that's a word that I haven't heard since 2022, decentralized.
Yeah, it's crypto winter, huh?
I mean, it feels like usually by now there's usually a comeback, but this time it just feels like the whole crypto side of things just been.
You say that, but I still think the fact that it hasn't fallen below 20,000 tells me something.
I mean, there's Bitcoin specifically.
Yeah, but Bitcoin's like 90% of what crypto does. So, that tells me something that it's not a complete panic. It's probably like quite hard resistance now because it's been there for so long in terms of stock price. I mean, in terms of market price. But I don't see, apart from the FTX thing that happened, which I think at that time I said it's not a reflection of crypto. Yes, you can get scammers and everything, but it's like people that use money to defraud people. It's not so much the vehicle, but what they're doing essentially. So I think crypto is still fine. In terms of what ends up being the dominant one, I don't know, but I don't think it's time to throw the baby out with the bathwater just yet. Could go to zero, but the fact that it's held in for this long is telling me something.
Right. Well, I guess one last thing to wrap up the social media side of things today is that follow us on Instagram. We are on Instagram now. Through the Web podcast. Look up, no verified badges yet. But essentially, we will be posting a lot of the short reels, maybe even engaging with a few of you via stories, getting more comments and questions from you from there. So do check us out through the Web podcast on Instagram. Finally, before we wrap up today's episode, which is entirely social media now that I think of it, except a bit of cars here and there, a few cars, a bit of Ford,
aircraft
a bit of Nest. Nokia's new logo.
Yeah, saw it. I think it's all right. I don't actually hate it.
Yeah, it got a lot of hate.
Every new logo gets hate. There's not been a new logo where people have been like, that's great.
I actually had an answer to that statement. There was one logo that a lot of people didn't hate. Can't remember what it was, but I remember trying to keep it in my head that next time somebody says that, I'll bring it up. But I've miserably failed.
Industry? Do you know what industry it was?
I think it was the fashion industry. I think it might have been Burberry, or was it Or Burberry was used as an example of what not to do. Anyway, okay. I digress. I'll come back to you on that one. But a lot of people hated it from my in my circles. How about yours? Did you?
Haven't talked to anyone about it.
Okay.
But from what I saw online, but probably 70% didn't like it. 30% thought it was all right. I don't think it's a disaster. I think it's fairly simple and kind of clever with the way they've removed some of the letters, and it makes sense knowing the previous logo. But I guess it's just maybe them trying to solidify their brand image as not that old phone company that everyone knew. That's gone. Nokia Mobile is
R.I.P.
RIP. So yeah, I guess the whole network security and network telecommunications kind of stuff. Maybe they're just trying to say this is the new us. Let's go.
So no cell phones expected, you reckon?
Well, HMD Global, they bought out Nokia from its demise, and they were going to resurrect it, but that didn't even work out. So
What was that?
HMD Global.
Yeah,
I think it was like a European company.
When?
When?
Yeah.
This would have been 2017, 2018.
Okay, so fairly. long
Yeah.
time back.
So, and yeah, I think latest news, it's not really working out. So, yeah, I think Nokia's just, it's gone. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Do you think it's gonna make a comeback with foldables?
That could be like a good angle, like to come out, just do foldables really well.
Partner up with Microsoft, get ChatGPT in it.
Oh yeah. Like imagine that, like a Nokia phone, Microsoft, not Microsoft software though. Microsoft makes who would do what? Like, because they can't both make the software. So it just use Android, but I mean, sorry, they both can't make the hardware. So it'll be Android, Nokia branding, Microsoft sponsored with Microsoft AI in there. What do you think? Foldables.
Yeah.
I'm not that keen.
I mean, I'm trying to imagine what it would look like, and
Yeah, just imagine like the Galaxy Note, but slimmer. Sorry, Galaxy Fold,
Yeah.
but slimmer.
then I have to like move everything to Outlook. That's a big no for me.
Yeah, Microsoft is.
Yeah. Okay, so you got access to Bing. Let's just.
Oh,
go,
yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did as well.
Right.
And how much of it have you been using it actually?
For some things, yeah, but I find that it's like, I think they've really gimped it out. Like every time I try and probe it a little bit, it's like, sorry, cannot continue.
They've
this.
really put the safeguards around it now.
It's just shut down after all that chaos, but it makes sense, I guess. And for context searches and stuff, I've used it. So, for example, there was this Japanese plane crash that I saw on that Mentour Pilot channel, and I was like, how did there was 4 survivors, like it literally freaking flipped over and crashed upside down into a mountain, exploded into flames, and 4 people survived. So I was like, how did they survive? And then they told me the name. Bing told me the names and whatever, and then that just told me more information about what they ended up doing and how they're all females randomly, and also like one of them became a artist in the United States in New York. Another one became a counselor for crash victims and whatever. So yeah, it was a lot faster than going through Google and whatever, and I found that quite useful. And also researching some stuff on that PRP therapy as well, that was useful. So there are some things I used it for, but it seems more limited than I would have liked. Like even compared to like Chat GPT in some ways.
I was gonna say I feel like I've been using ChatGPT a lot more than Bing, and I feel ChatGPT's functionalities and the way I want to do things
I think
more effective.
What's happened is Microsoft is just saw they let it loose a little bit. Chaos came out and they're just like ground level, just cut everything and then start probably ramping it up again. I think that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, and then I don't know. It's probably a good time for Google to start.
Apparently, not Lambda. Bard isn't great. Like according to insiders,
Isn't?
Yeah, it's not that great.
I mean, makes sense. This is kind of quick, rushed.
No. Well, Lambda has been around for quite a while, but Bard, I guess, that was quite rushed. But yeah, we'll see. Like, obviously, these are early days of the AI wars, and this is just the toddlers stepping out of their prams. So it's going to be a long while. And I think that pretty much wraps up today's episode. If I was half asleep, forgive me, you know why. So hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you again soon for the next episode. Cheers.